All right. So, welcome back to another Embrace Your Brand podcast. And today I have a guest with me. Her name is Tiffany Leader, and I'm going to let her introduce herself to you. She is kind of a new acquaintance of mine, but someone who is very passionate about what she does. So, Tiffany, introduce yourself to the audience, please.
Yes. Hey, everybody. I am Tiffany Leader, and I'm a clinical social worker and a burnout coach. And I help professional women, or I like to say, I lead the way out of the burnout cycle into a joy-filled life for professional women. And it's birthed from my own story, but also my own experience of working with women over the years and seeing that we have these expectations and that we have these things placed on us that squinches and squelches the joy that we have in our life because we think we have to live a certain way. And I'm here to say no, like some of that's not normal. It's not true. And that we can have a joy-filled life and an intentional life that we truly desire and not the rat race that we continue on.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about what your story is, because you kind of alluded to that you've had this experience of
Mhm.
burnout. So, talk about your past of where you were at and where you were experiencing this and kind of what you did to get yourself out of it.
Yeah, so I've been a social worker for over 14 years. I've been a clinical social worker for the last 7 years doing psychotherapy.
Mhm.
And I got to a place where I'll say I've been at places of burnout, but this last place of burnout was a lot of different things.
Mhm.
When you start getting higher up in your career in any um vocation that you're in, you kind of see what other people are doing. And what I was seeing people doing over my career that had a director position or a higher up position was that they weren't taking their lunch breaks. They were taking their work home. They were running around to all these different meetings, just kind of frazzled. Like I have a mental picture actually of a supervisor that I worked with, of just
Mhm.
the way that she worked. And so I think unconsciously I took that on. And when I got into a more director role, I was like, okay, I'm supposed to run as fast and hard as everybody else here in the name of for our clients.
Yeah.
And what happened was that I realized I couldn't run as fast and hard. And I didn't even realize that was what was happening because when I start in with something or with a company or with a cause, I am loyal, and that is my like strength, but it's also my
Mhm.
weakness because I'm loyal to the point where I'm sacrificing myself.
Yes.
And so that's what was happening because I knew things were not right. I started having headaches. I started having just this physical response to stress. Like I
Mhm.
could feel it like just tightening up all up in my neck in the front and in my neck in the back. I was not sleeping well. That's the number one question I ask my clients is like, how are you sleeping? Because when we
Yeah.
can't recharge and reset because of sleep, then we are more foggy brained. We are more apt to make mistakes unintentionally. We are more just not present like we would want to be.
Yeah.
And I saw that. I saw that in myself. But I just said, you know what? I grabbed on the thought of it's going to get better because I was helping open a program. We were developing all these different things. So I'm like, we just got to push through and keep
Mhm.
going. But I still had these different symptoms that were coming up. And I just said, yeah, it's fine. Like, I'll just keep going. I'll do the things I need to do in the name of self care. But what was happening, I wasn't really taking care of myself.
Yeah.
And so I would love to say that I had this moment of like, oh yeah, I realized I was burnt out, but I started going to therapy. And after a couple of times, my therapist kind of like sat me down and was like, Tiffany, like, when's it going to change? You keep saying it's going to get better, but like, when is it going to get better? And I was
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, I don't know. I don't know. And she was very gentle and compassionate with me, but she was like, you have to make decisions. Otherwise, you're already compromising your health because I started having panic attacks and had these frequent headaches and these different things were, I was crying every day.
Yeah. It's
And
amazing how, like, as you're talking about this, like,
yeah,
just your own body was giving you this pushback of like, this is not the
yes,
way I'm meant to work.
yes,
It is so crazy. It
exactly.
takes our brain a while to kind of put two and two together of
Yeah.
this is why I'm feeling this way because I keep pushing myself to do something that we hear about being aligned with what you're doing. It's like that's where
Hmm.
you're really out of that alignment. You're not appreciating and taking care of your body and your energy and how you're meant to work. And
Hmm.
like you were looking at those who were in those positions, and that was your example
Right.
that you went
Right.
by. You were
Hmm.
influenced by how they did it, thinking, I
Hmm.
need to do it the same way.
Hmm.
And we're all guilty of this.
Yeah.
We look at the entrepreneur, we look at the business owner, we look at the other professional or whoever it is that we're kind of looking at for that example of, well,
Yeah.
this is how they do it. This
Hmm.
is kind of that role model, if you will,
Hmm.
of if you're going to be successful like they are, you've got to do it like they do.
Right.
And
Right.
and a lot of times we see the examples of what not to do because
Yes.
they're
Yes.
they're running and they're going crazy, and
Yeah.
then the next thing you know they're like, I am so burnt out.
Hmm.
And if we
Yeah.
look at it as like, well, I don't want to be burnt out like they are, but I want to be successful maybe like they are, or what I
Right.
perceive them to be as
Yeah.
successful. But I think we all have our own versions of what that really is.
Yeah. And I think burnout is so normalized that like sometimes it's like, well, I have to be this way to be successful in
Hmm.
this career. And so we just kind of normalize like, oh, I'm just burnt out. And we just like leave it at that and
Yeah.
just think that that's the way it is. But the reality, it's not. It's not the way our bodies and our brains are designed to work.
Yeah. I think we hit that milestone maybe as a, well, everybody else has hit it. I'm bound to hit it too, and I'm
Yep.
there. But
Hmm.
it's like, what's that next step? Kind of how do you maybe, take somebody through that? They're like, I know I'm in burnout phase right now.
Yeah.
What in the world do I do to start getting me past this where I can get that joy back in my life?
Yeah. Yeah. One of the first things, like I said earlier, is like, how are you sleeping? I
Hmm.
really asked that question because like if we cannot adjust your sleep routine, then like I feel like everything else just doesn't work as well. Now we can work on it as we're working on other things, but
Hmm.
if the sleep component is not there, then our brains cannot process in the way that we need to. So I like to go through with my clients sleep routines. We look at what that looks like. Like, what is your sleep routine? Do you have a routine of winding down at the end of the day? And
Hmm.
if not, most of the people I talk to say no, or they're like, I try, but it's inconsistent. And I
Yeah.
I understand that. And so how can we like 1% better
Hmm.
make a sleep routine to help you sleep and help your brain and your body recharge?
Yeah.
Um,
I think
mhm.
that's a really interesting approach because some people will be like, well, what do I need to change?
Yeah.
They think of like the daytime hours. What do I need to
Mhm.
change about my job or what it is that I'm doing or eating or doing all this stuff? And I like how you
Mhm.
approach sleep because I don't think we give that
Mhm.
enough credit of just how refreshing it is for our body and our mind and for us to just be able to manage throughout the day. Like even
Yeah.
just this week, I've noticed with my son, like I'll wake him up in the morning to get ready for school. And
Mhm.
he's like, I feel like I just went to sleep. I'm so exhausted. I'm so tired. I'm like, okay, well, we need to look at how are you going to sleep at night? Are you
Mhm.
staying up past the time that mama says it's bedtime and the lights are out?
Yeah,
He's,
yeah.
he has things at his fingertips. He might wake up, he might go grab something and watch, you know, a show or a
Mhm.
YouTube video on his phone or tablet or something, and thinking that
Mhm.
may not be what you need. We need to approach how it is you're going to sleep.
Yeah.
So that's a fantastic approach because it's that refresh point. We need that reset every single night.
Right, exactly. And I find like I'm a go-getter. I want to jump in. I want to help you like change all the things too.
Mhm.
But what I've recognized over the time, if we don't address this while we're addressing everything else, or at least the first part,
Mhm.
then like you said, there is not a good reset point, and so it makes everything just a little bit harder.
Yeah, yeah. And it's one of those things you can subtly change.
Yes,
Because
yes.
in order to make any big changes, it's really just a combination of a lot of small habit changes,
Yes,
right?
exactly. And that's why I say 1%. I think I got
Mhm.
that from Atomic Habits by James Clear. I love
Yes.
that book. And I've heard other people talk about it too. And I just like started adopting it in my language because it's so true. And that's what I
Mhm.
teach clients. It's like we can do all this stuff and I can throw at you all the things that we can do and make the big changes. But one, I don't want to overwhelm you because you're already overwhelmed and exhausted. And
Yeah.
so I don't wanna be like, "Okay, we have to add another thing to your
Mhm.
plate, but can we do 1% better in these different areas?" And if you
Yeah.
feel good with that, then let's start there.
Yeah. And then it's just a matter of doing that repetitively.
Yes.
If they're doing some new sleep routine and
Mhm.
sleeping better at night, and then they're kind of like checking off the boxes like, I slept better this night, I slept better
Yes.
that night.
Yes.
That's just going to make them feel better throughout the day and give them that
Exactly.
more positive motivation of, okay, what else can I change? How else can
Yes.
I get better? It gives
Yes.
them that quick, small win, I think, when they can wake up refreshed the next day of like, oh, that worked. you know?
Yes. Yes. And that's what I started doing with myself, and I've always known that I'm a, like, 8 or 9-hour sleeper, like, for like maybe when I was younger, I could do the whole like maybe 5 or 6 hours. I was just talking with my husband recently. I remember staying up to like 2 o'clock one time and I woke up to be at work at 8 o'clock. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I would die doing that right now. I feel like, and
Yes.
I'm like, I am an 8 or 9 hour sleeper. So when I knew things were starting to where I wasn't sleeping or it was very restless or
Mhm.
um I wasn't feeling restful, like I was going to bed exhausted and waking up exhausted was a big signal for me to be like, "Okay, something is not
Yeah.
right."
Yeah, because then you feel like every day is just a continuation of the previous day, and you're like,
Yes.
there was no break in
Right.
between. Like,
Exactly.
yesterday is still happening today,
Yes.
and
Yes.
I'm back up for another 14, 16 hours and doing it
Yep.
all over again.
Yep.
So yeah, that does make a big difference. So what are some of the other things that, you might help people to change, or things that you changed and how you kind of embrace the fact that you experienced burnout and you need it to do some changes.
Yeah, yeah. The foundation of the work that I do with clients is mindset work because those expectations I was talking about earlier,
Mhm.
those things typically keep us stuck in the cycle of
Yeah.
burnout because we have to, or I feel like I have to do this, or I
Mhm.
should do this, or somebody's going to say something if I don't do these certain things. So I have what's called the outcome formula, and we work through this formula to be able to see like what is true about the thoughts that are going on, what emotions that are happening, and how is that showing up in your behavior? Because all of those different things are connected together.
Mhm.
And when we can kind of see those thoughts and say, is that true? Or is it just a thought? Or is it a thought that you developed because of an experience or somebody said something to you
Yeah.
or whatever? And so we bust through those thoughts
Mhm.
so that you can just clear the mental clutter that's
Yeah.
happening. Our brains get so cluttered. I think as women too, we kind of just think about everything. We hold everything in our brains.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
We
when
have
we
so many
can,
more thoughts than guys do
yeah,
going through our brains. So it's like, there's many times where I talk to my husband, I'm like, I'm kind of jealous how you're able just to like immediately shut down at night and fall asleep. I'm
yeah,
like, I will lay there for sometimes an hour before my brain has decided to be done.
yes, exactly. I just
Yep.
had that conversation with my husband last night, and he's like still awake, kind of doing stuff. And I'm like, I can't even like go to sleep right now. My brain, I like need to turn on something.
Yeah.
But yeah, we need to clear some of those thoughts that aren't serving
Yeah.
us. And so I do that. And then the
Mhm.
second component I do is what I call take a moment. And it's an intentional practice of finding joy every day. And or like taking breaks. So if you can't take big breaks, and I always tell
Mhm.
people 8 seconds is a great deep breath. It's 4 counts in and 4 counts out. If that's all you have, then take your deep breath and then move on to the next thing. But if you have more time, let's look at it. Let's dream again. Like, what did you love as a kid? Like, what did you enjoy? What lights you up? What inspires you? What kind of fills your soul? For me, it was nature and being outside.
Yeah.
So, a fun fact about me is that my husband and I, we live in an RV and we travel the country.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
so part of us intentionally living that way is that both of us are filled by adventure and exploration and being outside. So even
Hmm.
if it's a moment of where I can open the door and it's sunny outside and I can just breathe and feel the sun, and like recently it's been windy, so feeling the wind
Yeah.
outside, then that's enough to just like pump me up like, oh, this feels so good. Or even sit outside and work. The last couple of days I've been sitting outside and working and just doing admin stuff because it's been so nice and it has been so life-giving for
Yeah.
me. And so what I find with the women that I'm working with is that they've lost that. They've lost some of that stuff. And I did too. And even though I was going outside, I was not, it was almost like I'm going outside just to like dump, almost crash into my self-care stuff. And
Yeah.
so when I started becoming intentional with my senses of like, let me feel the sun, let me smell the air, let me
Mhm.
feel the grass underneath my feet. When we do that, that just regulates our entire nervous system and it releases the tension that we have.
Yeah, that it does. You're
Yeah.
reminding me of a conversation I had with a friend, and she recommended that I watch this documentary called Earthing. And it's
Yes.
about going outside, grounding
Yes.
yourself, how much
Mhm.
tension that can release from your body, like even inflammation in your body. It
Yes.
can help to relieve that if you're standing like outside barefoot for like 30 minutes or something. Just how we can,
Yep.
get that energy that we're having pent up that's kind of
Mhm.
causing us to be a little stir crazy, a little burnout or whatever it is. We're not meant to hold that. We're meant to kind of ground it and
Yes.
release it. So I
Yes.
love everything you're talking about. It's just
Yeah.
you're painting such a beautiful picture of what it's like to incorporate more joy.
Mhm.
And it happens when you really become just present in the moment, like when you're just
Yes.
talking about 8 seconds.
Yes.
Breathe in, breathe out, focus on like the breath, feel the
Mhm.
sun against your skin, feel the
Mhm.
air going around you, smell what you can smell outside,
Yes.
feel the grass, like just taking a moment to be present, and that's all you focus on. It lets
Yeah.
everything else kind of disappear for just
Yes.
a few seconds, and then
Yes.
you realize how unimportant that is in the moment.
Yes, and you can
You
get
know?
perspective, and that's
Yeah.
a little fuel up, I always call it. It's
Mhm.
like plug it in your car to, well, plugging in, but getting gas in your car.
Yeah.
And it's just tapping it off. It's tapping your system off and saying, okay, like I don't have, like if you have 30 minutes, or like for me, I am a business owner now, so I can build in an extra time at lunch if I need to. So I have an
Mm.
extra hour at lunch if I need to take a nap, if I need to sit outside. Maybe I will do some work if I feel good, but it's there so that
Mhm.
I can have that extra space to be able to do something to take care of
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. And I think even too, just becoming aware that we are still in control of our time.
Yes.
A lot of time we hit that burnout, we hit that crazy cycle because we think that my schedule is just controlling me. And it's like, you do realize you have control over your schedule.
Yes.
That was even a thought that crossed my mind this morning of like, I had some things that I knew were booked on my calendar today. And I'm thinking, I've got to
Mhm.
do these.
Mhm.
And I had this feeling, I have to, I've got to. And I'm like, no, no,
Mhm.
no, I get to. And I'm
Mhm.
still in control of my schedule. If I don't like how today goes because I've booked too many things, that's my cue
Mhm.
to think, okay, next week I'm not booking this. Or I'm
Right.
changing, how this is available, for
Yes.
for booking stuff. I'm like, okay, I won't in the future
Yeah.
put things back to back or whatever it is. It's like we have to realize we're still in control of our time, how
Mhm.
we spend it, even if we have a professional job that we go to, hours that we have to be in the office, you're still in control of your time. And if
Yes.
you know that you will work better if you took a 15-minute break and
Mhm.
came back to what you were doing, you should have the flexibility to do that.
Yes.
If that's how you know
100%.
you can work best,
Yes.
do that
Yeah.
for yourself.
Yes, and I think being aware of that, I think so often we're not aware of that, or we get cut off from our body because we're so much in our head. So being able to be present of like, how does it feel if you have too many appointments on your schedule? Or how
Mm,
does it feel to be very task oriented throughout the
yeah,
day? Or how does it feel to not take those breaks, even though they may be available to you?
yeah,
Um, so, and that's one thing that I did for myself. I became so aware of my body because my body was reacting in burnout. I was like, I need to figure out how my body feels when I feel good. And I
hmm,
knew that, but it just had been a long time. And
yeah,
so that's the work that I do too with clients. It's like, how does it really feel in your body? Is there tension in your neck, in your shoulders? Is there like, how are you sitting when things are a little bit more stressful or uncomfortable? Or does it feel really good? And if it feels good, do more of that.
yeah, yeah. I find sometimes if I'm sitting at my desk in my office and if I'm really hunched over and
Mhm.
leaning towards my computer and everything I've got going on, I'll all of a sudden realize I'm like way too crouched over what I'm doing. And I'll just
Yes.
like push my shoulders back, sit up straighter, just
Yes.
lay back in my chair for a minute. I'm like, just for a few seconds, that feels really good. Of like, oh, okay, I can kind of step back or just lay back for a second, refresh myself,
Mhm.
refocus, and then go back to what I'm doing. And it's just those little bitty things. And I love how you talk about, you know, asking yourself those questions about your thoughts.
Yes.
You're kind of categorizing them. What's actually true? What's
Mhm.
coming from some outside source that's making me think this way?
Yes.
Just taking those thoughts captive and just
Mhm.
categorizing them and knowing, okay, which ones do I need to pay attention to? Which
Mhm.
ones are actually serving me and which ones are
Mhm.
not? And then you can kind of, you know, figuratively take the ones that aren't, wad them up and throw them away. Like, this isn't
Yes.
serving me. I don't need to keep those. And whenever they come back up and I think of another one, I see another one in my mind, then I know that it's a
Mhm.
cue that this one doesn't belong here. And I can just pass it on away, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And I like to use a visualization of the ones that no longer serve you. Like if you need a visualization, like put it in a boat and just like watch the boat go off into the distance.
Yeah.
And so that just helps bring physical distance, as in your mind's eye, you're looking at it going away.
Hmm.
Because it's so often we get stuck in a habit loop of the same thoughts. And so we're
Yeah.
trying to break that habit loop. So having a visualization or some other technique to help break that cycle
Hmm.
of our thought is helpful to break the habit loop.
Yeah, that is so great. And that's so awesome. I love that you are really helping a lot more people to get through that burnout phase
Hmm.
and be able to release a lot of the things that they're carrying or thinking of that they don't need. They're able to break those habit loops, and approach life with more joy, whether that's, making those big changes or just simply finding more joy with what they're doing. We don't have to make a big career change. We don't have to make a big
Nice.
move in order
Hmm.
to suddenly get our joy back. If we're still stuck in those same habits, that's, it's not going to do us any good.
Right, right. And there's a time and it's like for me, I had to change because there was different level, like my job, there's different levels of burnout that was happening. There's some
Hmm.
systemic things and some cultural, like work culture things that I just couldn't
Yeah.
align with. So there are some things where we needed change, but like you said, but if I did not address the habits that I was in,
Hmm.
nothing would change if I changed my job. And
Yeah.
so it's important to address those different things. And I wanted to share too, like just a little thing of a client that I've been working with recently, just with the thoughts. We've been working a lot on the thoughts. She just went to her doctor for her annual checkup.
Mm.
And just because we've been working through her thoughts, her stress levels have gone down and her blood pressure has been in normal range for the first time in 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And just that connection of like, she was like, of course my thoughts were stressing me out and causing problems with my body. And now that I have worked through that, my blood pressure is normal. She's like, of course it's all connected. So it was really
Yeah.
cool to hear that.
Yeah. Those are great wins and great realizations. So
Hmm.
that's fantastic. Well,
Yeah.
Tiffany, thank you so much for being a guest today on my podcast. I really appreciate it. And I think we talked about many things that hopefully others can take away. Whoever's listening can think of, okay, maybe what are the thoughts that I'm holding on to that I need to start releasing, and really just working on incorporating some more joy into our lives, thinking of the things that we enjoyed as
Mhm.
kids or things we enjoy now,
Yeah.
and how we can incorporate more of that, take those pauses. I will put all of your information. So if anybody wants to reach out to Tiffany, follow her on Instagram, wherever she's at online, and see what she's doing, or possibly kind of had that conversation with you of like, hey, I'm experiencing this. I need
Yes.
help. Your information will be in the show notes. And just thank you so much. If you want to plug in anything, by all means, please do that.
Yeah. I am mainly on Instagram. So come follow me there at tiffany.leader. Also, I have a 6-week intensive coaching program that I am providing for clients right now. And I have some spots open. And I am loving audio text coaching through the Voxer app, because I find those of us that are burnt out, sometimes we feel like we don't have time. And so I'm offering a 3 months at a time, the Voxer coaching, because it's flexible, it's convenient. You can still hear my voice, I can hear your voice, or if we need to text, we can. And I have just seen clients have immediate results from that. So those are two different offers that I have out there. So if you are interested or looking for that, then I would love to connect with you or just chat with you in general. My DMs are always open. So please come and chat with me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tiffany.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.